The human who was never meant to be. There, John Walker never thought his simple cargo mission would end with him crashing on a royal alien planet. His small shuttle had been hit by an asteroid storm. Systems failed, fuel leaked, and gravity pulled him toward the nearest life signs, the planet Elindra Prime. He didn't know it was the sacred home of the Xelari Empire, ruled by powerful alien queens for thousands of years. His ship crashed in the middle of a green crystal valley. Smoke rose, sparks flew, but he survived. Wounded and confused, John crawled out. The air was breathable. The sky had two suns, and the trees shimmered with silver-blue leaves. It looked peaceful, but his troubles were just beginning. Unarmed, limping and dehydrated, John followed glowing pathways that led to towering buildings shaped like spiraling flowers. As he moved closer, guards in golden armor surrounded him. Tall, muscular alien women with glowing violet eyes. "Halt!" One barked, raising her blade. John raised his hands. "I mean no harm, I'm just lost, my ship crashed." Before he could finish, the ground beneath him glowed. A strange humming filled the air. Everyone froze. The circle John stood in was not just any floor. It was the entrance to the bonding chamber, a sacred place where suitors were tested to marry the royal princess. No outsider had ever crossed it and lived, but now the bonding crystal sitting in the middle of the chamber began to glow softly. The guards stared in disbelief. "This cannot be," one whispered. "It has not glowed in centuries." John looked down. "Did I just step on something important?" The alien women didn't answer. They simply surrounded him and led him, without explanation, deeper into the palace. He passed wide halls lined with statues of queens and warriors, their eyes following him. In a large golden hall, he was forced to kneel before a massive throne. Sitting there was Empress Xelari, a majestic figure with silver horns and flowing robes. Next to her stood Princess Xelaria, young and proud, with fierce glowing eyes and long white hair braided in warrior fashion. Xelaria crossed her arms and scowled. "This is the one?" she asked. He activated the crystal, a priestess confirmed. "It chose him." John blinked. "Chose me for what?" The Empress's voice boomed. "You have stepped into the trial of bonding. Only those who are chosen may take it. And now, you must prove your worth." John chuckled nervously. "There's been a mistake. I'm just a pilot. I'm not here to marry anyone." But no one was laughing. Princess Xelaria stepped closer, her tone sharp. "You walked where no outsider should. Now you'll either die in the trials or earn the right to stand beside royalty." The hall echoed with gasps. The nobles whispered. "A human? Chosen by the sacred crystal?" John was stunned. Wait, are you saying if I survive some kind of test I'll be forced to marry you?" Xelaria narrowed her eyes. "Don't flatter yourself, human. You won't survive the first trial." But deep inside, her heart raced. She didn't believe in fate or old magic. Yet this simple-looking man had triggered something. Even her own people hadn't in generations, and now all eyes were on them both. John looked up at the fierce princess, her face like a carved sculpture of fire and strength. He sighed. "All right, I didn't ask for this. But if walking away means death, I guess I'll try your trials." The Empress smiled darkly. "Then let the games of worth begin." As guards dragged John away to prepare him, the princess stood still, watching him closely. Something strange was happening, and neither of them knew. This accident would change the future of two species forever. The princess who hated the ritual princess, Xelaria, had trained with swords since she was 5, not smiles and dresses. She never wanted the crown, she never wanted the throne, and she definitely didn't want a husband. Every year, noble houses from across the stars sent suitors to her empire, begging for her hand. Some brought rare crystals. Others showed off their skills in battle. None impressed her. They all bowed, lied, or boasted. Not a single one saw her for who she truly was. So, when the bonding crystal glowed for a strange, dirty human. Celeria thought it was a cruel joke by the gods. How can this male be chosen? She hissed as her mother, Empress Sealari, studied the readings from the sacred stone. He passed the threshold, the Empress said calmly. The crystal has spoken. You must test him. Celeria scoffed. He doesn't even know where he is. He looks like he wrestled a sand beast and lost. Then he will fail, and the bond will be broken. But that answer didn't satisfy her. Deep inside, she wanted him to fail. Not because he was human, but because something about him disturbed her. He didn't try to impress her. He didn't beg. He didn't flirt. He looked into her eyes as if he was her equal. No alien male ever did that. The next morning, Celeria stood on the trial field, a huge arena carved into red stone and surrounded by chanting citizens. Thousands had gathered. They expected blood, and blood they would get. John walked into the arena wearing simple armor made for him overnight. He looked clumsy in it. His eyes scanned the crowds, then met Celeria's. He didn't smile. He didn't bow. He just nodded once. "Welcome to your first test, outsider," Celeria announced. "The trial of the mind." Everyone expected the trial of strength first, but Celeria changed the rules. She wanted to see if he could keep up. John was placed in front of a glowing cube, a puzzle device with shifting shapes and deadly traps. Solving it would open the gate. Failing it would trigger hidden blades. He studied it quietly. Celeria watched from her throne above. A noble beside her whispered, "He doesn't even know what it is. He's doomed." But John didn't panic. He muttered to himself, hands tracing the cube's lines. Symmetrical. Repeating pattern. Wait, that's not a design, it's a code. With steady fingers, he shifted the pieces. The cube clicked. The crowd gasped. The gate opened. He passed? A noble shouted in shock. Celeria's eyes narrowed. She changed the second trial immediately. Next came the trial of fire. A wall of leaping flame and moving platforms across molten rock. The crowd cheered. Even trained Zeleri soldiers failed this. John stood at the edge, feeling the heat. A voice behind him whispered, "Jump now, or burn forever." He took a breath, then ran. He didn't move like a warrior. He moved like a survivor, timing his jumps, rolling to avoid flame bursts, using a broken panel as a shield. The crowd was silent as he reached the other side. Celeria stared at him, her fists clenched. Who was this man? Why wasn't he afraid? That night, Celeria sat in her private garden staring at the stars. She was angry, confused, curious, and she hated all three. Then she heard footsteps. "You're not supposed to be here," she said without turning. John stood behind her. "I needed fresh air. Didn't know this was your garden." She finally turned. "You should rest. Tomorrow is your last trial." He nodded. "You don't like this, do you?" She frowned. "Like what?" "This whole bonding thing. It's written all over your face." She paused, then looked away. "They think I'm a prize to be won. A thing to possess." He chuckled. "Then maybe they're not the ones who deserve you." Celeria's heart skipped. No one had ever said that to her. And for the first time in her life, she didn't want a suitor to fail. The tests of blood, wit, and fire blood stained the stones beneath him. But John didn't stop. His shirt was torn, his shoulder burned, and sweat dripped into his eyes. The third trial had just begun, and already he had bled more than the last 5 noble suitors combined. High above the arena, Princess Celeria leaned forward in her seat, her sharp gaze locked on the human below. The final trial was not meant to be survived by someone like him. But here he was, still standing. The arena gates had opened to reveal Trial 3, the Gauntlet of Endurance. Not one challenge, not 2. 3 deadly rounds back-to-back, each worse than the last. The first round dropped John into a pit with a razor-beaked Droxa, a beast bred for war. It screeched and charged. Everyone in the crowd expected John to scream or run, but instead he picked up a broken spear from the bones of a fallen warrior. He didn't attack blindly. He lured the creature toward a stone spike. At the last second, he rolled and the beast impaled itself. The crowd gasped. Some cheered. Celeria didn't blink. Round 2 was worse, a hallway filled with shifting walls, collapsing floors and swinging axes. John limped forward. He had no map, no guidance, only quick eyes and quicker instincts. One wrong step, and the floor vanished beneath him. He caught himself by a finger's edge. He laughed. Is this a test or a joke? From the stands, nobles watched in stunned silence. He should be dead, one muttered. But John made it through, bruised, cut, but breathing. He looked up to Zelaria's throne. Still not dead, he shouted, panting. For a moment, just a tiny second, she smirked. Then came the final part of the gauntlet, the bridge of blades. It was a narrow beam suspended above fire, spinning slowly, lined with sharp swords. One slip and death was instant. John stepped onto it. Each movement had to be perfect. No rush, no panic. He focused, not on the crowd, not on the flames, but on one thing. Zelaria. She was watching him, and something in her eyes had changed. The cold stare was gone. Now she looked conflicted. John reached the end, collapsed, and let out a laugh of pure exhaustion. He had survived. All of it. The crowd roared. Zelaria stood up slowly. She had seen the strongest warriors fall in that gauntlet. She had wanted him to fail. But he didn't. He had no alien blood. No special weapons. No training. Just heart, grit, and something else she couldn't name. Later in the royal chamber, Empress Sailari turned to her daughter. The crowd calls him champion. Zelaria didn't answer. The Empress added softly, the law says if he passes all trials, he becomes worthy of the bond. Zelaria turned to face her mother. He's not like the others. Sailari's expression was unreadable, and yet he passed what others could not. That night, John lay on a bed softer than anything he had ever known. His body ached, his muscles screamed, but he couldn't sleep. The trials were done. Tomorrow the crystal would test the bond again, and if it glowed, he would become the chosen mate of the royal princess. The thought made his heart race, not because of the honor, but because of her, Princess Zelaria, the warrior with fire in her blood and steel in her eyes. He didn't want to win her like a prize, but, deep down, he didn't want to leave without seeing if she felt it too. A night under the alien sky. The alien sky shimmered like liquid fire. Twin moons hung overhead, casting soft silver light across the royal garden. Strange glowing petals opened in the night air, releasing scents that didn't exist on Earth. Sweet, sharp, and wild. John sat alone on a stone bench, bandages wrapped around his chest, arm, and leg. His body ached from the trials, but something else hurt more. His thoughts. He didn't belong here. He knew that. And yet, the crystal had chosen him. The people had cheered for him. Even the Empress had acknowledged him. But what about her? Princess Zelaria. She hadn't said a word after the trials. Not a look, not a gesture. Just silence. He wondered what she truly thought of him. The soft sound of boots on grass made him turn his head. There she was, Princess Zelaria, wearing no armor tonight. Just a dark flowing robe that glowed faintly under the moonlight. Her white hair was loose, flowing like mist. "You're not sleeping," she said flatly. John tried to smile. "Can't. The stars are too different here. Too bright." She walked, slowly toward him but didn't sit. "They say you passed every trial." "They weren't easy," he replied. "But I didn't come here to prove anything. I crash-landed, remember? You could have refused. Many suitors have walked away. And died, right?" She didn't answer. Instead, she looked up at the stars. "This garden," she said quietly, "was planted by my great-grandmother. She believed that one day, the one meant for her bloodline would stand here, not as a ruler, but as a partner." John looked around. Beautiful place. Many have tried to reach it, none have earned it until you. He stood up slowly. "So what happens now? The bonding crystal glows and we're married just like that?" Zelaria turned toward him, her voice soft but serious. "If it glows again tomorrow, the law binds us." John nodded. "Do you want that?" The question hit her like a blade, through her armor. No one had ever asked her what she wanted. They asked what the Empress wanted, what tradition demanded, what the court expected. But this human, this man, was asking her. She looked him in the eyes. Earth eyes, not glowing, not powerful, but warm, real, honest. "I don't know," she whispered. They stood there in silence. Then John spoke, his voice low. "Back on Earth we have this saying, the stars are beautiful because they don't belong to anyone." Zelaria blinked, surprised. "Maybe," he added. "We don't have to belong to each other. Maybe we choose." She took a step closer, her eyes glowed not with power but something gentler, curiosity, respect, maybe even something more. "You speak like no warrior I've ever known," she said. "I'm not a warrior." She smiled. "Just barely." "Then what are you?" John shrugged. "I'm just a man who crashed into the wrong planet, and might have met the right person." For the first time, Zelaria laughed. Not a royal laugh, not a political one. A real, soft, surprised laugh. She finally sat beside him. Under the alien sky, a human and a princess shared no crown, no war, no vow. Just silence, and the beginning of something neither of them had words for. The betrayal in the court, the throne room was cold, not because of the weather, but because something was wrong. John stood alone in the middle of the massive hall, hands bound with glowing, silver cuffs. His face was bruised, his lip cut. He didn't fight back when the guards dragged him in. He only looked at one person, Princess Zelaria. She stood frozen beside the Empress, her face pale with shock. "What is the meaning of this?" Zelaria demanded, her voice sharp like lightning. A tall noblewoman stepped forward. Lady Voren, one of the most powerful advisors in the Empire. Her long robe shimmered with embedded jewels and her eyes burned with pride. "This human is a fraud," she announced loudly. "A spy, a liar, and a threat to our bloodline." Gasps echoed through the room. Zelaria's jaw clenched. "That's a bold claim." Lady Voren raised a glowing tablet. "This was found in his room. Secret transmissions sent to enemy ships. Coordinates, maps of the palace." John's eyes widened. "That's not mine. I've never seen that before." "Silence," one of the guards shouted, slamming him to his knees. The Empress studied the tablet silently. John looked up straight into Zelaria's eyes. "You know I didn't do this," he said softly. Her heart twisted. She wanted to believe him. But the evidence at the court, her people, the bonding ceremony was supposed to happen today. The crystal had been moved into the main chamber. Hundreds of nobles filled the balconies, whispering and pointing. Some were pleased, others outraged, but no one expected treason. John was taken to a holding chamber, locked behind force fields, alone. Again. Hours passed. No one came. No trial. No explanation. Just silence. He sat on the cold floor, thinking. Someone didn't want him here. Someone powerful. Maybe the whole bonding was never meant to happen. Meanwhile, Zelaria stood alone on the palace balcony, fists clenched. None of this made sense. She had felt the truth in his eyes. She had watched him bleed for their trials. He could have run away so many times. Why would he risk his life just to betray them now? "Someone planted that tablet," she whispered. Behind her, a voice said, "Careful. Thinking like that can be dangerous." It was her old friend and bodyguard, Captain Riva. Zelaria turned sharply. You don't believe he did it either? Riva nodded once. No soldier looks into death's face 3 times and just to carry a fake tablet. They locked eyes, and that was it. Without another word, Zelaria marched back into the palace. She wasn't going to let this end without answers. She stormed into the high court chamber and ordered the evidence re-examined. The guards hesitated. The nobles whispered. And then, it happened. Zelaria pulled a secret override rune from her sleeve, something only royal blood could use. The crystal tablet unlocked, and what it revealed was not from Earth. The transmission codes belonged to Voron's own family line. Gasps, screams. Voron stepped back, face red with fury. You dare. Accuse me? I don't accuse, Zelaria growled. I show proof. The Empress stood, her voice calm but deadly. Enough. Release the human, and take her to the lower cells. Lady Voron screamed as guards grabbed her arms. The room exploded with chaos. Moments later, the cell door opened. John stood slowly as Zelaria walked in. She didn't say anything. She just walked up to him, reached out, and gently unshackled his wrists. He looked into her eyes. No more trials, she said. No more games. The bonding crystal awaits. As they stepped into the glowing chamber together, every voice fell silent. The crystal pulsed. Once, twice. Then, bright. Golden light flooded the hall. It had chosen, again, stronger than before. The bond was real, and now nothing would ever be the same again. Her public defiance. She stood before the Empire with fire in her blood. Princess Zelaria had worn many faces in her life. Warrior, daughter, heir to the throne. But today, as she stood in the center of the grand ceremonial square, under the gi, blazing twin suns, she wore only truth. All around her, the high nobles of Alindra Prime whispered in polished robes. The arena steps overflowed with citizens, soldiers, and priests. A great circle of silver banners waved in the wind. In the center of it all knelt a man, John Walker, the human who had survived every trial, passed every test, and yet had been nearly destroyed by betrayal. Now he was brought before the Empire once more, not to be crowned, but to be judged. By law, the high priest declared, this human must be rejected. The bond is forbidden, he is not one of us. The nobles roared in agreement. Cast him out, one shouted. Break the bond, cried another. John didn't speak. He kept his head low, jaw clenched, then a voice cut through the noise like a blade through silence. No. Every head turned. Princess Zelaria stepped forward, her armor gone, her royal jewels removed. She wore the simple warrior's cloak of her ancestors. I will not deny what the crystal confirmed, she said. You would defy our law? A noble barked. I would defy a lie dressed as law. The crowd froze. The Empress narrowed her eyes but said nothing. Zelaria turned and walked toward John. Step by step, whisper by whisper, until she stood before him. The guards blocked her path and she stared them down. Move, she ordered. That's a royal command. They hesitated, then obeyed. Zelaria reached out, took John's hand, and helped him rise. You don't need to kneel, she whispered. He looked into her eyes. Are you sure? She smiled just a little. I've never been more sure of anything. Gasps erupted. The high priest stepped forward. Princess, this is madness. You break ancient code. Zelaria turned to face the Empire, holding John's hand tightly. For centuries, we believed only our kind were worthy of the bond. But the crystal, older than this throne, has spoken twice. She raised their joined hands. Twice, and louder than any court. The crowd was silent. Tension hung in the air like thunder before a storm. Then a single voice cried out from the crowd, Let her choose! Another joined, Let them bond! And then another. Soon, hundreds were shouting, then thousands. Let her choose. The Empress rose slowly. All eyes turned to her. She looked at Zelaria, then at John, then at the glowing bonding crystal, still pulsing softly behind them. A pause. A breath. And then, she nodded. The choice is made. The Empire roared. Later, in the quiet of the sacred garden, John and Zelaria stood under a glowing tree. He looked at her, still unsure. You just risked your entire world for me. No, she said, stepping closer. I risked it for us. And as the tree bloomed behind them, its light wrapping around their joined hands, the galaxy shifted. A warrior princess had broken the rules, and the human who was never meant to be there had become her equal. You're taking me as your wife? Really? The stars above Elindra blinked like witnesses. The ceremony was over. The crowds had left. The court had been silenced. But in the quiet garden behind the royal palace, something more powerful than tradition was about to happen. John stood beside a small pool of glowing water, holding something in his hand. A ring, made from a melted piece of his crashed ship, polished and shaped with care. He didn't have royal armor. He didn't have alien riches. Just this tiny silver band, and a question in his heart. Princess. Zelaria stood across from him, barefoot, her royal robes replaced with a soft flowing wrap that shimmered like dusk. Her white hair was loose, wind-kissed, and her glowing eyes softened under the moonlight. She looked almost nervous. He smiled. You've faced armies and giant fire beasts, but you look more scared now than ever. She narrowed her eyes. I don't get scared. John chuckled. Right? Then he stepped forward and opened his hand. She gasped. You made that? It's not fancy, he said, but it's mine. Like this decision. Mine. He looked into her eyes. Zelaria, I don't want a bond because of magic, or because a crystal glowed, or because your people shouted. I want you. Just you. Not as a prize, not as a princess. He took a slow breath. But as my partner. So, I ask you. Not as a suitor, not as a warrior, just as a man. He bent one knee. Will you marry me? Zelaria blinked, then blinked again, and then she did something no one expected. She laughed. Not a smirk, not a royal giggle, a full, real, belly-deep laugh that echoed into the stars. You're taking me as your wife, really? John looked confused. Yes? She stepped forward, grabbed him by the front of his shirt, and pulled him to his feet. You stupid, brave, ridiculous human, she whispered. You think I would say no? He grinned. I wasn't sure. You're lucky I like surprises. She took the ring and slid it onto her finger. It glowed, just like the bonding crystal. Later in the palace tower, the Empress watched the glow from the garden. Captain Riva stood beside her. You approve? Riva asked. The Empress smiled softly. For the first time, I believe in the old legends again. And far away, across the stars, stories would spread. Of a human who entered a forbidden palace. Of a princess who broke every law for love. And of a bond that no war, no bloodline, and no empire could deny. Because in the end, the galaxy didn't need more rules. It needed more reasons to hope.